Welcome to this special conversation on Business Redefined, your weekly most comprehensive look at the world of business, finance, and economics. Ever since this man assumed office, we have been chasing for this interview, and finally, we have been granted the opportunity to speak to Engineer Peter Njenga, the man in charge of KenGen. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Good to have you, sir. It has been 6 months since you assumed this office.
Precisely.
How has your experience been so far?
Very interesting experience. You're aware that I just crossed over from KPLC to KenGen. In KPLC, we were running around to ensure individual customers have supply consistently. When I came here, the ball game is different because I'm in generation and I have one customer, one off-taker KPLC, and I have to ensure that the power is available for KPLC 24/7. So that is how interesting this game is for me.
So speaking about crossing over, when I saw your appointment, here was my hypothesis. They have picked a KPLC insider because of the arrears, the aging arrears conversation we've been having around KPLC being a liability to KenGen.
Yes.
One, what's the quantum as we speak of the aging arrears? And two, are you seeing an end in sight to this headache?
Well, I think you're right. Perhaps your hypothesis is correct. That somebody from KPLC, it means then I have a big advantage because I have access to quite a number of my colleagues in KPLC, and we have very close working relationship with the MD and CEO KPLC. But coming to your question about what is a quantum, I know currently when I looked at the numbers the other day, we only have a debt balance of 2 months because they are paid up to the month of November. So we only have December and January bill. So this one for February, of course, we shall issue it later in the month. So maybe the outstanding debt now is below 20 billion. And the reason is because there are some payments that we require KPLC to pay us in dollars because we have dollar-denominated loans that we have to pay off. We have suppliers that we also have to pay off in dollars. So that has been a big challenge. But we are happy that the dollar has picked up. I mean, the Kenyan shilling has picked up against the dollar. And we are seeing a situation where now there will be a lot of dollars. I saw the other day people rushing to the banks. You know, we were told there are some people who are hiding dollars in their bedrooms.
Yeah.
So they rush to the banks to exchange the money. So dollars will be there. So in fact, perhaps I should have an engagement with the CEO KPLC so that we see how the outstanding amount that is dollar denominated, how can it be now offset? Because I'm aware that they have the Kenyan shilling, but the problem is now to get the dollars.
Just to piggyback on your point around foreign exchange, I noticed that a lot of the financing that comes to KenGen comes from JICA, the Japanese agency. And I'm curious as to, when you look at your hard currency denominated obligations, what proportion is yen denominated? What proportion is USD, given what you've said? And I can imagine the yen has really given you a breather in the period where the shilling was really losing.
Yeah, good question, and thank you for that question. Perhaps that is the reason why we work very closely with JICA, because they have funded most of our major projects, especially in geothermal. As for the proportion, I believe it could be close to 50%. But that again, because of how the shilling and the yen have always run in parallel, it means that we have had a very good breather. We have not had challenges with the yens because it has been stable. So I think JICA is one of the institutions that have really supported KenGen, and we continue looking forward to more support. There are quite a number of projects that in the pipeline that we expect JICA to see them through by funding them without any problems.
Speaking about a number of projects in the pipeline, when I wear my analyst hat and look at KenGen numbers, my view is always that KenGen's dividend payout is quite subdued. And I'd imagine this is because of the heavy capex that, of course, you incur because of the kind of projects you engage in. Shareholders invest for a return. How do you intend to fashion the dividend policy under your leadership, especially seeing that you look to be quite aggressive when it comes to investments?
I think it's important for us to understand that this country continues to require heavy investments in generation of electricity. And the main reason is for us, KenGen, we are at a very good position to generate what we call the base load power. That is from hydro and geothermal. And it is quite capital intensive. In fact, our latest commissioned project, which is Olkaria 1 additional unit 6, if you look at the costs per megawatt, it is quite huge, because we spent about 17 billion Kenya shillings to generate 86 megawatts. You can do your mathematics, and that turns out to be about 200 million per megawatt. So there is a lot of heavy investment. But coming to your question about the shareholders, of course, we know that anybody who puts a shilling in an organization, they expect a return. We have a dividend payout policy, which is 45% of the profit that you make. We pay it as dividends. And what we are looking at is, of course, to ensure that we increase the profit. If we increase the profit, the payout will also be bigger. And the challenge is looking at our asset base, which is at around 500 billion Kenya shillings. And you look at the benchmark, we expect actually to be making well above 10 billion as profit every year. Last year we made 5. So we still have a long way to go, because that is our target, beyond 10 billion. And we believe when, of course, we make that profit, looking at our payment, dividend payment policy, then the payments will be higher. And whenever we do that, we'll be able to pay our shareholders as per our policy. Of course, as I said earlier, there is still some portion that you have to keep, because you want to keep on assuring Kenya of more stable power supply in future.
How much runway are you giving yourself before you effectively double your earnings per annum? What horizon are you looking at as your target?
We are looking at, if we are at 5, we can push, maybe in the next 3 years, we should be talking of above 10 billion as profit. Our target this year is 8 billion. We are pushing very hard to improve the efficiencies of generation, because that's one area that we can do very well, and ensure that we have more revenues from our generators. We are looking at the way we operate, our operational efficiency. We are saying our target is to have our availability of our machines going to 100%. Currently, we are doing about 93%. So if we can do something about the 7%, there will be more revenues, and at the end of the day, the bottom line will improve.
When you started this conversation, you did intimate the switch from Kenya Power to KenGen. You were dealing with retail consumers on that side. Here you're dealing with one off-taker. The Energy Act of 2019 has the open access provisions.
Yes.
And indeed, we have even gone as far as seeing regulations drafted around bulk supply. What would this mean for your business?
Very interesting opportunity that has been opened up for KenGen. You're aware that, I don't know whether you're aware, that perhaps when we do generation in geothermal, you have to continue releasing the steam even when you're not generating. Because if you close down the steam, then it affects the process of restarting. Takes longer. And if we can be able to utilize whatever steam we are venting at night, we are able to redirect it to other users, other off-takers, then it will be very beneficial to us. Currently, for your information, we have established an energy park in Olkaria. And we invited people to show their interest. And we have gotten very many who are interested. And I want to encourage others who could be listening to this to actually look into that space. Because our intention is actually to generate power and deliver it direct to our energy park. Of course, that will mean it will be at a reasonable price. And manufacturers or any other investors, we already have one interested party who is already on site clearing where they want to establish a data center, which means there is a lot of interest. So that particular opportunity, we want to seize it, and we want to utilize that opportunity to be able to get additional revenues by supplying other customers directly.
What would this mean from two perspectives? I'm trying to look at the architecture around this. One is from a tariff standpoint. So when you're doing the direct sale, if I could call it, and two, from an infrastructure standpoint. How would that look like? Would it be infrastructure sharing with what already exists?
Of course, it means that for the infrastructure, we have to do our direct, line to supply the energy park. That it is us to do.
Yes.
And since we work very closely with our sister organization, our off-taker, they are the ones who are experts in doing that, or even KETRACO, who normally do the transmission lines. We are going to engage them. Or even independent contractors who are able to do the lines. We are going to engage them to do the line to our energy park. So I don't see any problem on the area of tariff. We are already engaging EPRA. We are in discussions. We have written to them so that they can look at what we are giving them our proposal, so that they can look at the numbers, so that they are able to give us now the license to be able to supply directly.
Still going back to the sole off-taker, it looks like your market share there has been eaten up by the IPPs. What do you intend to do about this under your leadership?
Good question. The IPPs, if you look at the history, they actually saved this country out of a lot of distress when we had no adequate supply and the demand was very high. So they came at the right time. But of course, that also poses a challenge to KenGen. But from where I sit, I know KenGen has the advantage that we are able to produce what we call the base load power. That is from geothermal, which has been very stable, and also from hydro. In fact, when you look at the priority for dispatch, KPLC will always look at, do you have available baseload power? That is what they offtake first, because that gives them stability in the system. So for us, we are going to fight more in the space of generating baseload power in hydro and in geothermal. Of course, we are also looking at solar. And our solar, for your information, we are looking at it differently. We want to install our solars where we have the hydros. From the challenge of hydrology, which we have experienced, negative hydrology that we have experienced before, if we put solars where we have hydros, we'll be able to utilize the solars during the day and preserve our waters during the day, and we generate using hydros during the night. So our power will be very stable. And we already have, transmission network from where we have the hydros. We are also looking at, in future, bringing the solars together with batteries, so that whenever the solar is not available, we have the batteries that can take over, and the power will still be very stable. So that's what we are looking at. We are also looking at the wind. We are not going to allow the independent power producers to be in that field all alone. We are also going to fight in that space as well. And we have some projects that we are targeting for wind generation.
This country has had bouts of pervasive outage, what you call the nationwide blackout,
yes,
in the recent past. And when I look at the numbers, my own assessment, and I'm not an engineer, is that we have a problem with our residual capacity. Supply has not caught up with the rising demand. One, is that a fair assessment? And two, how comfortable are you with Kenya's residual capacity?
I think it's important for us to look at what is our installed capacity in the country today. We are now talking about well over 3,300 megawatts installed capacity in our country. The demand, the highest peak demand we have had so far is 2,170 megawatts. So the headroom we are talking about is well over 1 gigawatt, well over 1,000 megawatts. So the only challenge when I look at it from where I sit is because that headroom, most of it is from wind and solar. You know, we have the biggest wind power plant in this region, the Lake Turkana, which generates over 300 megawatts. When you combine with the others, you find that we have almost, I think, 400 megawatts of wind. That's a very big proportion out of our installed capacity of 3,300. So that headroom that we are talking about, and of course we have quite a lot of solar also in that headroom. So to me, there is a big challenge. And that's why I was saying it is an opportunity for us to now look into installation of base load power from geothermal, because the geothermal potential in this country from the assessment that have been done previously is well over 10 gigawatts, 10,000 megawatts. We have only done only 1 gigawatt. So there's a whole 9 gigawatt that we need to harness. So I think that is where we stand, and we need really to work so hard. We are calling for the support from the government and the donors, the financiers, to support us to increase the geothermal generation. We are also looking at hydro very keenly, because if you go around this country, there are rivers that can actually generate quite substantial hydro power. And the fact that you have them across the country, then we are able to have generation in various parts of the country, and that is going to support the grid and stabilize it. So at the moment, we cannot say we are very safe with the headroom that is there. We need to run quickly. We need to push the projects that we are having currently in KenGen and the ones that are being done by independent producers, so that we can have even bigger headroom for us to manage. This country, the economy is going to peak. The bottom-up economic transformation agenda that is now currently picking up in this country, we will have so many investors in this country, and the demand is going to outstrip the supply by far. So it is important that now we push our generation, installation capacity to higher levels.
Engineer, just to piggyback on your point, so in your own assessment, and I'm sure at your level you are privy to what really could be happening, what has been the cause of these power challenges that we've had lately?
The blackout.
The outages, yes.
You know, when I just joined in, I think it was just 1 week, and there was a blackout. And I remember getting calls, about what is happening. I think what we need to address currently is the evacuation. The evacuation, that is the transmission network. We need to work on it, and I'm happy that the government is pumping a lot of resources in improving the transmission network in this country. And there is a lot of activity. I understand the Narok-Bomet line is something that is on the table, and very soon we'll have that problem addressed. There is the other issue of Kitale, Kutum, is also going to be addressed. So generally what has had an issue is evacuation. We have a lot of power generation centrally in Olkaria. The line that evacuates power from Olkaria to Nairobi cannot handle the whole of that power. So again, that is an area that we need to also upgrade. But again, it is important also to ensure, even us as generators, including the independent power producers, that we have very stringent and we follow our maintenance programs for our plants. Because when a plant comes out, and as we were discussing the issue of the headroom, it means then that sometimes, depending on which area you are supposed to evacuate power to, then you'll have shortages. And that's why sometimes you hear that there is some rationing or some load shedding that is happening. And it's purely because we cannot evacuate power from Naivasha to Western region because of the capacity issues about the transmission line. So overall, is a question of ensuring that the systems, the generators are well maintained and they are in good working condition. The lines that evacuate this power from wherever to the other positions, they are also in good working situation. Our digitalized, communication systems that are able to monitor the systems are also well maintained. And then when you come to the National Control Center, they have to be very keen in observing where do we need power at what point, so that they are able to manage and call up the generators whenever they are required or put them off whenever they are not required. And that, power, you have to consume it when you generate. So if you generate more, then it has an effect on the system. So they have to keep on balancing. If the demand goes up, you have to push on the supply. If the supply is not adequate, you have to reduce the demand so that it is balanced. So to me, I believe if we continue working the way we have set up a team comprising of KenGen, Ketraco, our sister off-taker organization, KPLC, that team is working as a unit to address the issues of ensuring that in future, you don't have these blackouts coming up again. You have realized since the last one that happened, was it in November? We are now in February, we have not had a challenge, and we believe we will continue to doing what we are doing. Then the issue of power blackouts will be history in this country.
KenGen has had exploits outside the country, Ethiopia, Djibouti.
Yes.
What are the learnings so far? And are you looking to scale up this, if I could call it, outreach beyond Kenya?
Remember what I was talking about, we are looking at improving the dividends to our shareholders. So one of the things we are going to do and we are pursuing is aggressive diversification, looking at outward markets. You have already mentioned we are in Ethiopia, we are in Djibouti, and very good lessons that we have learned that you can actually get extra revenues by working outside this country. KenGen, if you look at the whole of this region, we are the highest producers of geothermal power. In fact, in the world, we are number 6. But if you look at the proportion of geothermal power to the total installed capacity, we are number 1 in the world when you look at the proportion of geothermal generation. Now, looking at what we have been able to do over the years, our first plant in geothermal was in 1981. You can look backwards and see that is a very long experience that we have. So we have experts. We are experts actually in geothermal. And the majority of the people from around this area, this region, Malawi has visited us. They are interested in us helping them to explore their geothermal. We have Tanzania. We have Zambia. So the countries, we have Rwanda. Countries around come to our geothermal plants to see for themselves what we have been able to do. And we showcase that we have the requisite capacity, we have the requisite skills, and we are able to do this work ourselves. And we sharing the experiences we have had in Ethiopia and in Djibouti, where we have successfully completed our projects. For your information, very soon we shall be in Tanzania. We are going to help them to drill 3 explorative wells because they are now exploring their geothermal capacities in that country. So you can see, if we continue like that and we venture into other countries, in fact, we are also saying that even as we succeed in doing exploration and we confirm there is geothermal, the next stage is for us to help them now do the actual generating wells. And finally, even help them to establish the power plants. And if possible, even run those power plants for them because we have that expertise.
So, quick follow-up there. So how soon are you going to TZ?
Tanzania, we are in the process of signing the contract. Immediately we sign the contract, we are there. Maybe in the next month. And it's a small project which we intend maybe in 3 months we should be done.
Thank you for that scoop. So we have a lot of discussion. It's actually been a long-running conversation around one of the assets held by KenGen. I think it was to the tune of about 5 billion Kenya shillings, amortized cost, attached to All Carrier 4 and All Carrier 1. And to the best of my knowledge, that facility or the loan supporting that asset was meant to be taken over by the National Treasury. How far are we with that?
Thank you. In fact, that was an issue in our last financials by the auditors. And we are in discussions with National Treasury. We have agreed they will take over that loan and transfer that asset to KETRACO, because ideally it is an evacuation line from that power plant to the grid. That is what we did together with the plant. And it was supposed to have just been transferred to KETRACO. But of course, you know KETRACO is 100% funded by the Exchequer. So really it is National Treasury to take it up. So we are in discussions. We are following up with our mother ministry, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. Our CS is really helping us to see that is concluded, that asset moves to KETRACO, and the National Treasury takes up the loan facility.
How are your relations with the GDC? Because if you look at the greater ecosystem, they are supposed to be creating the pipeline of prospective areas you could venture into, and seeing the ambition you have around ramping up the energy generation on KenGen's side.
Yes.
How are those relations?
So far, so good. We are actually buying steam from their wells. In fact, that has been a very good source of their revenues, that they really don't rely on funds coming from the Exchequer all the time. Whatever comes from KenGen is really helping them to sort out their funds requirements. Of course, the government has to top up. We are in discussions with them. We have said we cannot work alone. They have done very well. They have gone to Paka. I'm told that the Paka field is very good field. They have gone to Selale, another field that is very good. So our discussion is, can you now come and we sit on a table and agree, can we develop power plants ourselves? Of course, we have the first right. Whenever they have this team, it is KenGen which has the first right. Only challenge is, as I mentioned earlier, the cost of establishing these power plants is quite high, and we have to seek funding from financiers, which again, the government has to support us in acquiring those funds. But because of the need for power generation and what I've mentioned about the baseload power, I believe the government is going to support KenGen, and we are going to work very closely with the GDC so that we can develop those power plants from the wells that they have already established.
Engineer, unfortunately, we have to close it at that point. In the interest of time, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Asante sana. That's been our conversation with the man in charge of KenGen, Engineer Peter Njenga, running through a raft of issues: power supply, dividends to shareholders, performance of the company, the targets he has now that he's the man steering this ship. We shall keep in touch with this to be able to bring you the latest as it develops, so stay tuned.